When it comes to lighting a scene, your light doesn't always have to be soft. There's a time and place for hard light, and I will do a video on this in the very near future. But when I'm lighting a scene with a soft key light, I usually want it to be the softest light possible. And for this, we're going to try and compare different methods for it. Number one will be a direct light source, diffused, nothing else. And this is what's lighting me right now. But then in our next step, we're going to go a step further and we're going to try a double diffused method where we're going to shine our light through a big diffusion frame and therefore making our source light a lot bigger and also double diffused. And then in our last step, we're going to try a book light method, where we're going to bounce our light off a light source through a diffusion frame, and therefore we should get the softest light possible. So by the end of the video, I want to answer the questions. Is it actually going to be softer? If so, by how much? And is the more effort and more gear that we need to bring and time that we need to set up everything worth it? So let's find out together. So the first thing we're going to do, as we always do when we're lighting a scene, we're going to set up our camera and we're going to expose for the background that we can change, because there's a lot of natural light spilling into this room, so we're going to expose our camera for the background. I also have a light tube set up in the background just to make it a little bit more interesting, but this is not of real importance. Once we've set up the camera and we expose for the background, we can bring in our key light. And method number one will, like I already said, be a direct light source. For our key light today, we're going to use the Intelitech Lightcloth 3.0 Mega 8FC. The light mat comes with everything you need and it's relatively easy to set up. I set it up all by myself, and all you need is a light stand and the light mat itself. And then it also comes with a softbox and different diffusion material. It does come with a half stop material as well as a full stop, and we could even stack these to make it a 1.5 stop, but for the purpose of this video, I just used a one stop diffusion material. Why I prefer the light mat over a COB light with a similar sized softbox is because the footprint of the light mat is so much smaller, because we have this huge LED mat that we can just use to fill out our frame. Whereas we would have to have a huge parabolic softbox with a COB light to get the same results in terms of size. Alright, now looking at the results, I have my monitor right here. It is really nice and soft. There is a little bit of a hot streak right here, so I think that for most purposes, this is perfect. You just want to set up an interview and maybe you switch locations, or you just want to do a talking head setup like this, or you're setting up a scene and you're short on time, you don't have a lot of space, then this is the perfect solution, and I think it's really nice and soft. But like we said, we're trying to find the softest light. So now let's move on to our second solution, and we're going to try to take this light and then shine it through another layer of diffusion, which is going to make our light source even bigger and hopefully even softer. So the next method, like I already said, is going to take our key light and we're going to shine it through another layer of diffusion that ideally is even bigger than this softbox. So we're going to spread it even further and diffuse it even more. And for this, we can use a diffusion frame. So the diffusion material that I have right here is actually from a diffusion frame that is meant for this, but especially indoors, it's kind of a pain to actually set it up and we don't really have enough space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take two cheap light stands and we're just going to attach the diffusion frame to it. And I'm also going to link all of the equipment that I'm using down in the description below for you to check out. So, like I said, two light stands, they're just really cheap light stands, and one pro tip, if you're working indoors, especially on like nice hardwood floor, always take some cut off tennis balls to just save your clients or your own floors. So that is really important. The next step is also that we're going to take these clamps. They're specifically made for this so that you can attach them to it and then you can just clamp in all of the diffusion material. The diffusion material that we're using, I think, is a 1.25 stop, but you can actually use kind of anything. You can even use a shower curtain if that's all you have. And then we're going to set this up. We don't have that much space, so let's just lower our frame like this, and then we're going to push it back all the way until there is no space anymore, like so. Then we're going to take our two light stands. We're placing one on the left side, one on the right side. Let's get it nice and high up here so that we can attach our diffusion material in between. One is going on the right side. Alright, now we're taking our diffusion frame. It should be a 6x6, so there should be enough space. This one does come with a frame to attach to another frame. But like I said, that is not what we're going to use today. We're not going to be that fancy. We're just going to clip it in here. Like this. So just this. Down in here. And I'm gonna take this to the other side, do the same thing. So this is our diffusion material. And now we're gonna try to find a way to actually get it as close as possible to our subject, in that case, me. Alright, so now we're going to bring this as close to me as possible. And as you can see, now we're getting an even bigger light source. So we're also trying to place it in a way that it's going to wrap around my face. So not frontal, not all the way from the side, but trying to wrap around, as you know what I mean. Okay, so this is probably as close as we can get. Like I said, I wanted to wrap it around. Let's try to get this a little higher up even. Same here. I think that's the highest we can go. Alright, now we're going to compare our results. And as we can see, so here, now we are making our source a lot bigger than it was before, and also double diffuse it, because now we have 2 layers of diffusion. Let's sit back down. So far, not much has changed. So let's actually increase the power, because now we're double diffusing it. Our light source is further away, so we're going to actually increase the output. And like I said before, we were at 10% on the light source. Just to give you an example, like this is 100%. So we have plenty of light. So we could even, if there's a lot of spill light coming in, the light source is strong enough to even get us there if we need to. So let's just go down again. So now we are at 20%. 20%. So I don't have the comparison right in front of me. I just have to judge by memory, because all I'm seeing right now is what I'm having in front of me. You are having a split screen right now, so you can see what is what, and I will judge this later when I look at it at the TV. Honestly, looking at the big monitor in front of me, I don't see that big of a difference. Although we are filling out the frame nicely. Ideally, we would be able to get our light source further back so that we have a bigger spread. We could actually even try to get rid of the diffusion material and then just use our big diffusion material, but I don't think that would make a big difference. So it is really nice and soft. I'm always looking away because this is where my monitor is. I don't feel like it's that much softer than our original light source. And we're using more diffusion material, and we're using 2 more light stands, which isn't the biggest of deals, but it's more equipment and it definitely does take a little bit more time. So now we're going to try our third method, and we're going to use something called a booklight. Quick reminder. What is a booklight? What does it do, and why are we going to use it? A booklight is basically not having our direct light source directly hitting our subject, but we're going to bounce it off something. And usually what we do is we take a light source and then we just reflect it into a bouncy material, and this is usually just something white. This could be styrofoam or an actual bounce card, but then we're going to also bounce it back through another layer of diffusion. This could be just a diffusion frame or any kind of diffusion material onto our subject. The cool thing about this is that it doesn't take up that much space because we can have them pretty close together, and it's called booklight because in the end it will look like an open book because we have our diffusion frame on one side and then we have our bounce card on the other, and our light is somewhere in between. Today here we don't really have a lot of space, and I could use a big bounce material, but I have white walls just behind our diffusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn around our light source. I'm going to bounce it against the wall, and then we're going to bounce it back through the diffusion frame that we just set up, and therefore we are going to create some kind of booklight. But I will be doing a dedicated video about a booklight, so make sure to subscribe if you're interested in this as well. Alright, so like I said, there's nothing but white walls just behind our diffusion frame, so there's really no need to set up a bounce card. I will just turn this around and then bounce our light off the walls and into the diffusion material. So it's very easy and simple, at least I hope it is, to just take our big soft box and turn it around. There's not a lot of space here though. Alright, so what are the downsides of actually using this kind of method? The problem is that we're losing a lot of light because we're not only going to shoot it through a diffusion, but we're also going to shoot it through something bouncy. And with this method, we're going to lose a lot of light. So we need a very strong light source. Luckily for us, like I already said, we were at 10-20% earlier, so we can just bump it up all the way. Now, everything is blocking our light, so there's nothing spilling back onto it, so we need to lower our light source all the way to the ground so that we're bouncing it into the corner and then we're bouncing it back onto our subject, me, through the diffusion frame. Here, like you see, there's nothing really going back onto it, so we need to lower our diffusion frame. Unfortunately, with this light stand we can, so we need to get a little bit creative here. Let me get a smaller light stand. Okay, so what I've done now is I switched out our previous light stand with a baby C stand so that I could lower our light source a lot, tilt it up, and now shoot it into the corner of the room, bouncing it off the white walls through the diffusion material, and this is the result. And as you can see, it's pretty dark and it looks like I didn't light anything at all. And remember, we were at 20% before, which is what we are right now, and well, this is the result. So now we need to increase the intensity of our light source. I just wanted to give you a comparison of how much light that method will actually take away from us. And now we're going to just crank up the intensity. So I'm going to look at my monitor over here to where about I would probably like this. Okay. That's actually looking pretty good, and we're at 100% right now. And I think this looks really soft. Does it look much softer than the previous versions? I'm not sure. And keep in mind, this was a simple version because we do have a corner with white walls. If I didn't have the corner for white walls, I would have had to have another C-stand with a bounce card, a reflector of some sort. So more material, more stuff to bring. And again, I will do a video about booklights, and there's also a really cool version of it where you just have everything on one light stand, so it's not that impactful, but we'll see. But now we have a really nice soft light spilling throughout the entire room. So the next step will be to bring all of the footage and compare it side by side on the big screen. So this is what we're going to do right now. Okay, back here in the office. And before I spoil the results, I will let you have a look at it so you could decide which is the softest light, which you like better, and also which method is which. Okay, so now looking at the results, I think there's no surprises here. It's actually as expected. The direct light source was the least soft, whereas the double diffused booklight method was the softest. But honestly, in my opinion, after color grading it and having it look the way that it's supposed to be looking, it's a marginal difference and it's really not that big of a deal. Yes, if I have a big project where I really want the softest light possible and I have the time, the budget and the crew, I will take all the extra steps to get that little bit of extra softness. But keep in mind, but for most other things like YouTube talking heads, a quick interview, especially when I have to change locations, I think just a big direct light source is good enough for 90+% of the project. And this is also the biggest learning of this video, that the bigger the light source, the softer the image will be. And it doesn't matter if you bounce it through something or if we triple diffuse it or quadruple diffuse it. At a certain point, there's no extra softness achieved by just diffusing it even more. If you have one stop of diffusion or maybe even 1.5 stops of diffusion, it really doesn't matter if we just add more diffusion to it, because then we just crank up the light source and the results will stay the same. But what does have a really big impact is how big our light source will be. And this is where the booklight comes in. Because the way that it's supposed to be is that we're actually saving on space, because we're bouncing it and therefore making our light source bigger. And then we can just bounce this off into a even larger diffusion material and therefore making our light source even bigger after this. But again, I will have a full video on how this works later on this channel. If you want something that is really powerful, easy, and you can just move it around on one light stand, then I highly recommend the Intellitek Mega 8. This video isn't sponsored by it, by the way, and I will link everything down in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then please give it a thumbs up because it really helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more because there will be a lot more videos like this coming. I will do a video on how to light small spaces like a pro, as well as how to get a really nice soft top light. So make sure to not miss them and activate the notification bell, and I hope to see you on the next one.